Most people think that you need to be a top tier builder to run an AI automation agency. I didn't, and my agency has done very well in the last few months. We've made over $50,000. And this has all come from me not actually learning any tools. So what does it actually take? This is what we're going to dive into today. And we're going to look at sort of some of the myths, my journey, how we got here. And hopefully a lot of you can get the same sort of value. And if you're looking to enter this space, hopefully it gives you some confidence to actually enter it. So let's jump on in. Like I said, most people, they think they need to master every tool, right? We have N8N, we got Make, APIs. There's all these very, very hard words, and they look scary from the front, right? I was in that boat. I saw all these words, and I'm like, wow. Do I learn Make? Do I learn N8N? How do I start? If I'm not strongest in the building, do I just all into one platform? And really, the belief stops right there. Right? With my pen. We don't need to learn Make. We don't need to learn Zapier. We don't need to learn N8N. You can start an agency with zero. Well, I don't want to say zero experience, but you should have some sort of gist of what happens. You should know about the space, what it does, the difference between Make and N8N and Zapier. You should know, maybe not the nodes that are in it, but how the platforms work, right? And it's very important to remember that the real job of an AI agency owner isn't dragging the modules, right? It's solving business problems. And this goes for any business, right? This is, if I opened a laundromat tomorrow down the street, right? Do you think I know how to run a laundromat? No, I know how to do business, right? I've done businesses before. I do this automation agency, but I don't know fabric softeners. I don't know, how long a spin cycle happens for and all this stuff, right? We have washing machines, we push that stuff. The same thing happens with this. You should know what it is that you're fixing, but you at the end of the day is the solution. You are the solution designer. Right, if I'm opening a laundromat, my solution is people don't have time to wash their clothes or they don't have access to a machine. So I provide this solution, and I provide it in a cost-friendly way. Maybe I have memberships, maybe I have some sort of recurring revenue model, but I don't need to learn what fabric softener to use, right? Like I can get that stuff. That's a very simple, quick search. So the point I'm trying to make is clients that have a problem, and you are the solution designer, and then you say to your builder, we have this problem, this is the solution, this is what we're building. Maybe we have like a N8N, we want to build an AI agent, for example. Well, we know how agents work, we sort of understand the gist of it. As long as we can understand the problem and know how to solve it and deliver it, and we can communicate that to a builder who executes it, then we can do handover and we can explain this does this, it's been tested, it's quality assured, this does get you your ROI. So we don't need to do the building per se, we just need to communicate and understand problems and where everything lies, right? You're an architect, not a bricklayer. So a little bit about my start. I landed my first client on Upwork. I was a month into, I started learning and I thought I had the grasp on the whole space. And I was like, yep, I can take clients on. I thought there was going to be an initial lag time. So I went, well, 3 weeks, maybe I should get my first client within 3 weeks. It gives me enough time to actually get the experience to like mastery level. So I started doing it, and I got my first client in 4 days. And that was, it was a literal thrown in the deep end. It was a, hey, are you ready? No, cool. Get in there, right? And I had zero technical mastery. I sort of understood what we were doing, right? I had business sense and I could map the workflows. And I said, okay, so my first one was an onboarding flow, right? So I understood it went linear, I understood that there was a trigger point here and we needed to do X action, Y action, right? and understood everything here. But in terms of the actual building and putting everything together, I was not a master at that. I finished the job and I didn't have, I would call it a success in that I delivered it and I done it, right? But I would call it a failure in the length it took, the way I went about it, client management, communication, all that stuff. It was a very good, valuable lesson that I learned. But the biggest thing I actually learned from this was clients do not care who dragged the module. They only care about the results. They care about the end and the beginning. This is why in all my videos I harp on that the end is one of the most important aspects of the design. So when I went into, actually starting the agency, I had a big concern because I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be, or essentially this model, right? I'm going to be this person here and I'm going to have a person here. Like, a client's just going to be like, no, I don't want that. Like, I'm hiring you. And there's some aspect of it, that I want you to build it. That's why I'm hiring you. Like, sure. But I would say about 90% of my clients are completely fine. I say I have a team, I have builders, I have project management, I do a lot of the strategy and the solution design, and they're completely fine with it. It was very much it was one of those things that you're in your head, right? You're sort of, oh no, I don't. They're going to think like I'm really crap and shit at my job, which maybe you are at building, but they only care about the results. Can you deliver it? And that was a huge turning point. So I built this and then I was like, no, I can't do this. So the thing I learned, right, is we need to hire builders early to protect time. So I had, myself plus the builder, and then the client was a big happy face. It didn't matter if it was like this or if it was like, we should do it in red, but if it was me and me equals smiley face, a little disjointed. So it didn't matter if we used this one or we use this one. The result had the same, right? So I learned, what was the best use of my time. If they have the same outcome over here, then is it more beneficial for me to use this, me being in this position, essentially? So with my background and my strengths, I obviously wasn't, super technical. I came from real estate before this. My family owns a real estate agency. Before this, I also owned a cleaning business. And then I also, before that, was self-employed as a finance broker. So I had a bunch of business experience, right? I knew how to grow stuff, how to run teams, how to do everything, but I didn't know how to do technical stuff, right? So when I'm looking at this model, I'm saying, okay, well, this stuff is the gold stuff. This is exactly who I am, the strategy, the architect. This is what I'm built for, right? This stuff I'm not so much. And if the results are the same, then logically we should shift our time. Let's see if we can do a clock. No, it failed at that. We should shift our time to strategy, right? That's logical. And that's sort of what we did, right? That's the leverage model. So when I shifted this, I noticed a couple of things. Every hour spent building is an hour spent not growing. The automation industry, you can argue that it's templated, a lot of it. So you could just drag and drop and it is quick. But for my background and what I am, and many of you will share the exact same thing, an hour spent in my actual strengths of being in business, talking to people, outreach, networking, like an hour of that is 10 times more valuable than an hour of me trying to work out how to build systems. So an example of this, right? I spent 2 hours a day applying on Upwork. I get one new client a week, just, for 2 hours. This is about 14 to 20 applications. So it takes me about 2 hours a day to do this. And I got and signed and closed and paid and everything for one new client a week. If I spent 2 hours building these systems, I had zero growth. And it causes a bottleneck at yourself when you're doing this. It's okay if you're incredibly efficient. So if you are like a systems person, then 100% it makes sense for you to build systems and hire or partner with someone, like myself, that does that aspect, right? So this isn't just a start an agency and I'm going to be the salesperson. If you're incredibly good at systems, you should spend your 2 hours on systems and then hire or get someone to help with the front end, right? It's not just a single way street with this point that I'm making. So this is why I personally focused on consulting and sales instead, because all of this led to one client maybe serviced, or two clients, one client serviced every 2 weeks, but this was actually bringing in revenue every week. And if I paid someone to actually do the building, it worked out as a positive ROI, far, far greater by leveraging my strengths. Now, the only caveat to this that I'll say is you need to sort of do an ROI of time. So you want to make sure that if the time spent building, you don't actually sign a client in that time, right? So if I spent 10 hours building for a job and I got $1,000, let's say, and then I spent 10 hours, applying on Upwork or any sort of lead gen, and that only equaled like $500, it's sort of a positive ROI. There's a little bit more in depth to this, but sort of makes the point where it's like you need to do a cost analysis. Which one makes the most amount of money? Which one's my strength? Obviously, if it's like this, then probably my strength is the systems, right? I haven't got strengths in the sales. Otherwise, this would be like 1,500. And then we know, that's where we need to put our time. So in doing that and focusing and hiring a builder, I got a fabulous builder. I was really lucky to not have to sift through a huge pile. I sort of identified really quickly the top people that we needed, someone who was very efficient, and he's still with me for now. And he probably will be just until forever, until he decides to leave my ass. So the result was I got from 0 to 10K without being a builder, right? Once I sort of got a grasp on the whole scene and I sort of went, so this is how you do it. Like the concepts are the same. Most agencies and how you build a business is the same. It's just you got to do little tweaks based on the industry, right? And the lead generation via Upwork was sort of newish to me. So I sort of had to tweak it, work that out. And then, the building, how do we optimize a builder to, have the greatest ROI on their time, right? I don't want them to spend 2 hours following up with logins. Maybe it was stalled the project because I didn't get the logins properly. Okay, so I need to include the login section and I need to get all those details on the onboarding call. Okay, I've done that. And then there's just a whole bunch of them, which I can go into another video, but it was a lot of trial and error. And once we actually clicked and I worked it out, a month max got me to 0 to 10K. The following month, it got to 20K, and then this month, I think we're pushing 30K very comfortably, all without being a builder. I understand the concept now, but you don't need this technical skills, right? If you knew, you don't need to waste months learning every tool. And in all honesty, how long will these tools actually last? Right? How long will N8N be a thing? How long will Make? Make was probably 2 years. And then N8N came along, and now that's way more powerful. How long till the next thing comes along? Or how long until, what's the longevity of actually N8N and building agents maybe until the next new great thing comes along? Now there's sort of, the skill cross platforms and you can get it all. But a good example is Copilot, right? Zapier was a hell of a lot easier than Make. But then Copilot came along and now you just chat to the thing, I want this done. I'll change the flow. I want this included. And the AI built into Zapier will actually change the flow for you so you don't have to do it. How long until that gets implemented across Make and N8N? Maybe not Copilot, but it might be GPT. GPT's agent mode, I have tested it, can actually build flows, right? I've done N8N, I've logged in and I said, can you build a Shopify, an updated, so when I update something on Airtable, it'll update on Shopify. And it built it. I mean, granted, it took an hour of agent mode, but it still built it. So as our technology is going up, how long until the next Make and N8N start becoming redundant, really? So I'm not bagging these platforms. I love these platforms. These are amazing. But it's just from a purely logical standpoint. What's the greatest ROI? Is it learning these tools for months? Or is it learning how to spot these valuable problems and selling solutions, right? And learning how to identify really, really high quality builders. Which one would yield the greatest ROI? Which one will stand the test of time, really? In 5 years, which one will actually benefit you more? So that's just my takeaway on the whole situation from my learning. And it's exactly what I teach in my school community, right? I'm not going to do a huge plug here because I don't like the plugs. But if you are struggling to sort of grasp this, I do have a school community that we're starting up for this exact reason. Right? I have all these resources. I've tested it all. I've worked out that what I need to do as a non-builder to actually make this successful. And I can sort of skip this building grind and go straight to running a business. And, that's why we go into business, right? To run a business, to grow, to scale and really bring in a lot of revenue, not to learn. Unless you're an IT man, then you can learn, how to build and stuff. But this community specifically is about how to build an agency with all the resources. I have the job ads that I use, SOPs, proposals, onboardings, everything's in it. So that's in there. So I hope you've learned a few things from this. I hope you take some notes away from all of this with how I built my agency, and that you can enter the space. Don't let the whole daunting just everything, the language, the terminology, connections and everything. Just don't let it put you off, because it is a great space and it's a great working environment, right? Like, I love this job. It's amazing. But if I was going to say one thing that would put people off, it would be the hesitancy to how complicated it looks from the outside. So don't let that put you off. If you have any questions, drop them down below. All my details and everything is down in the description as well. If you need to ask me something on LinkedIn or another platform, you book a call with my team and we can do a consultation as well. And other than that, have a fabulous day.